Hey everyone, so grateful to be here. It's honored and privileged. I'm going to start. Helena will come up after me. We just want to thank New Heights. We're from Canada. We're in Lebanon. It just seems pretty crazy, very surreal that we've been able to go to different schools and share with the kids, and now to speak to leaders in the area is a huge passion of ours. So we are grateful for that. And we're grateful for all of you being leaders in Lebanon. We're excited to have a chance to get to know all of you if we have that time. But for Helena and I, we see this problem of pornography being rampant, not just in where we come from in Canada, North America, but as we see obviously in Lebanon and all over the world. So the average youth today is actually seeing pornography at 8 years old. And we see this as a problem in the church and outside of the church. So one of our messages is that with this stat, there is no fault. If we see pornography at a young age, we are very often not prepared to see what we are about to see. So these kids are seeing pornography with no idea what to do. So we want to make sure that that's the message, is that whoever sees pornography is not alone, and it's definitely not your fault. So one of the biggest things Helena and I realized is that this topic is very taboo here. We use the word taboo in North America, but we have now realized that it means something different out here. So from our story today and what we've been sharing with the youth is that if anything resonates with you, we just want to really convey the message that there is a God who loves you. There is hope and freedom and forgiveness available. He died for us when we were sinning. How much more will He love us when we are in obedience? So by the age of 13, I was actually watching pornography every day. I had forgotten what a normal life felt like. I was so embarrassed. I couldn't talk to my parents. I couldn't talk to my friends. And I was just slowly withering as a young man. So my journey that I want to take you on is this journey of shame and embarrassment, but then identifying this shame and embarrassment and the wounds in my heart to then help God and Jesus come into my heart and heal me. So when I saw pornography, I was 10 years old. My friend found a magazine of naked women in his dad's closet and showed me. And this was at a time where I had no preparation. And I remember looking at this magazine and knowing it was wrong, but I could not stop looking. I could not stop. And if I knew the shame and pain it would cause me for the next 14 years of my life, I would have covered my eyes and ran away. The most tragic part of this story is that I was very wounded from my childhood. A 10-year-old boy, not knowing any better. My mom smoked a lot while I was growing up. She would be over at the neighbor's house smoking and drinking. And I remember my dad would say things like, I don't like those neighbors, mom's just doing things to cover up her pain. And hearing that as a young boy, what do you do with that? And I remember my dad, funny guy, great guy, but so emotionally distant. I remember actually seeing him watching pornography. And I remember thinking, well, that must be normal. I remember hearing him objectify women and thinking, that must be normal. And I had all these wounds deep in my heart that I must have to perform to be a man. I must have to do this or do that or have a female in my life just to feel better. Because if my dad needs to watch pornography and my mom's not good enough, then I must need something else too. So by the age of 13, I was fully addicted to pornography. I played sports, I liked video games, I did things that a regular kid did, but as soon as pornography came into my life, I was fully consumed, and those things did not matter to me anymore. And I remember when I was around 15 years old, there was this internet software that came out that actually allowed me to download my own porn. And this was the end of my childhood. Again, I was very involved in hockey, I'm Canadian, hockey and lacrosse and these sports that Lebanon doesn't have. And these were my passions, my life. I would spend every day of my life playing sports. And I was a good student, but as soon as I could download my own porn, I would literally wake up in the morning and run to the computer and spend half an hour in the morning downloading porn. I would then go to school, and all I would think about is porn. I would get home from school, and I would try to get home before my sister got home so I could then hide those videos that I had downloaded so she never found them. And then what I would do is I would wait till everyone was downstairs watching TV or had gone to bed, and then I would finally watch those videos at 15 years old. No preparation. I had a hole in my heart from these wounds from my childhood. And all I was doing is trying to soothe myself. My parents never talked to me about sex. They never talked to me about love. We weren't Christians. My mom was a heavy Catholic growing up, so she was very strict in her faith. So these things were just not talked about. And little Shawn was just trying to do the best he could. And that's the reality of this story. And I just want to pause for a second. And this is something that I did with the youth, and I think would be powerful today. If you can just realize from my story, there was 3 really key things that were not my fault. And as we are leaders in this room, I would pray that you would find these 3 things relatable, maybe for the youth that you are leading or that you are around. But I was wounded in my childhood, which was not my fault. I saw pornography from my friend, which was not my fault. And I was just trying to do the best I could to soothe wounds that I did not know how to soothe, which really wasn't my fault. So if you can relate to that at all or understand that, the 3 main things that drove me into addiction were not my fault.
What's the certain point?
Pardon me?
The certain point you said.
A certain point?
The third point.
Soothing point?
Third
Third point, sorry. Third point was that I was searching for things on the internet without any preparation. So I was just searching for what felt right. And obviously feeling right isn't what is right. So that's a huge part of my story. And I really wish that I had known about this God, this Christ, who exemplified love, who made sex beautiful, who made sex to be between a husband and a wife, to be this incredible gift. Because that would have saved me so much of my life of trying to perform, being so anxious that I needed to have somebody in my life. That was a big part of my story, was this feeling that I always had to find somebody or perform for someone. And you know what that does to a little boy? That ruins them. They think that they're always less. They're never good enough. And then porn becomes that thing that seems to make them feel a little bit better. But it never satisfies. But God is so good. He came into my life, and I met my beautiful wife, Helena. We've been married just over 2 years now. But we have a really weird story. We met at the Vancouver Library on Helena's first day in Canada. Isn't that God's sense of humor? She met me at the library. That's already hilarious. But what had happened is Helena ended up moving 6 hours away from me, so a lot of our dating relationship was actually done over Skype. And long distance relationship is okay, but when porn's involved, the sad reality of our relationship was I wanted to marry Helena very quickly, but we would Skype. And I would watch porn before we Skyped and after we Skyped. God had given me the girl of my dreams, the one I wanted to marry. I had found love. I had found everything I thought I wanted. And I was still watching porn. And this is where the reality of addiction comes in, where I hated pornography, but I couldn't stop. And I have experienced some of the worst outcomes of a porn and masturbation addiction. And I really want to make this clear. When I was single, I thought if I just found somebody, I would finally be able to quit porn. When I was dating, I thought if I could just find a hotter, better girlfriend, then I would quit pornography. And I thought when Helen and I got engaged, if we could finally get married and have sex, then I would quit pornography. And when we got married, I just thought, man, if Helena could just do things better, then I'll quit pornography. These are all lies. Absolute lies from the enemy who steals, kills, and destroys marriages and friendships and families. And that was what was happening with Helena and I. And this is the enemy who creates this shame that we are hearing about in this culture. God does not condemn. Jesus Christ does not shame. There's no shame in the cross or the gospel, and that was what entered into my life. There was this breaking point, this beautiful moment. I was unchurched. I was 22, unchurched, just bitter with life, addicted to pornography, addicted to performing in business, all these things that had this incredible corruption inside my body. And Jesus just met me in this darkness. I ended up going to church on a Sunday by myself, which is so unusual, very, very weird for me to do this. And the sermon that morning was where Jesus is confronting sexual immorality, the church of Thyatira. What a coincidence, right? God's sense of humor. And this sermon, I didn't understand any of it. Nothing made sense. Nothing mattered. Except the pastor said one key thing. He said, you can be free from pornography. And I had never, ever heard that before. Who speaks like that? Thank God a pastor was willing. A young pastor in his early 30s. I hope one day I can talk like him and inspire people. But I was so hopeful for the very first time in my life. I was scared, I was doubtful, I was embarrassed, but Jesus entered my heart and I actually saw a light at the end of the tunnel. And this was a time where it was very hard for me to share about my struggles. I remember just thinking, man, people are going to laugh at me. I'm the only one struggling with pornography. Nobody else has problems like I do. Like, I'm this young guy. Like, why am I struggling? You know, some older people, maybe they had crappy lives. Like, I was just very naive and arrogant. And I started trying to seek this Jesus guy and doing things that were good. And I started going to support groups and church groups and trying to talk to people. And God opened this crazy door for me to meet this 70-year-old man, like a rock and roll guy. And we just connected on drums and music and things that weren't about church and weren't about addiction, but we created this amazing friendship. And that's the beauty of connection. And you know what I found when I went to this group is no one laughed at me. I wasn't the only one struggling with things. And I actually found out that 70% of men struggle with pornography at some point in their life. And that's the reality, is God still loves us in these struggles. And I found out that we have a God, again, who just loves us, who lavishes us, who just adores us. So that was a huge point in my life when I was finally able to share about my struggles. And that is one of the main keys and why we are here, is to help bring some hope and freedom and some excitement around sharing these struggles, because it is freeing when that weight just comes off of your shoulders. But there was this one point that actually wasn't so fun when I shared my struggle. It was with Helena. I had relapsed, watched porn 2 months into our marriage. And I had to tell her the morning after. And it was devastating, absolutely devastating. 2 months into marriage is usually a time of excitement and joy and planning for the future. And I had to ruin that because I couldn't handle this urge, this pain inside myself. And that created this real heaviness and bitterness in me, that I was failing as a husband, that I was failing as a Christian. And I remember this very vivid story the day before I turned 25. Helena and I were driving to the lake, beautiful day out, gonna celebrate my birthday, and she didn't know, but I had watched porn every day the week before. We're driving to the lake, and I can't even look at her. I can't even look at myself, feeling like a failure, like a loser. Go to the lake that day, and God, I don't know what I don't remember much, but I just remember God doing something. Because I got home that night, I looked in the mirror and I said, I'm not going another year of my life like the way I have been. I'm going to start being a true husband. I'm going to start honoring God because He has given me so much. If He's willing to meet me in my darkness then, He's going to do it again. And I woke up the next day on my 25th birthday, August 20th, 2017, and I quit porn forever. And we are here because of the freedom that Helen and I have felt and experienced, because the beauty of God in freedom from addiction is so real. And we want to make you guys aware of that. If it's you, if it's your youth, if it's someone you know, if it's family, it is incredible. And the things that Jesus will do when we are obedient is mind-blowing. Like we are in Lebanon. That is mind-blowing. And to see what our marriage looks like today, to see where the freedom is today, to see youth coming up to us telling us that they are stuck in bondage, it is just absolutely incredible. So we are blessed by that. And some of the things that Helen and I are now experiencing are things that we dreamt of one day. And when God starts making true the dreams that you once had, it is incredible. We read about in the Bible about the peace of God and the joy of God. But there's this amazing analogy I'm going to share in our training after about this raincoat that we wear when we're in addiction. So I'll share about that after. But I want to bring up Helena.